Today, we dive into a true classic of medium format photography, the Rolleicord VB, the final chapter in Rollei's affordable twin-lens reflex lines.
We'll explore why this camera still inspires photographers half a century later and how it represents both the peak and the closing chapter of the TLR era. Photography before Rollei was dominated by box cameras and folding cameras. They were simple, often limited, and not very portable. Rollei was the first company to bring the twin-lens reflex design into the form we recognize today. When they introduced the Rolleiflex in 1929, it set the standard for medium-format photography. From then on, the world of cameras followed Rollei's lead, and TLRs became the dominant style for decades. Photographers like Vivian Maier used Rolleiflex cameras to capture everyday life with a quiet shutter and waist-level view, making people feel natural and unthreatened. This cultural impact is part of why Rollei's cameras are remembered not just as tools, but as icons of photographic history. From that point on, the world of medium-format cameras became dominated by the twin-lens reflex design, and the Rolleicord VB, released in 1962, came right at the end of that era. It was the last affordable Rollei TLR produced until 1977, marking the closing chapter of TLR popularity before the rise of modular SLR systems like Hasselblad and Mamiya RB67. Let's start with the functions and features because that's where you really see how this camera was designed to be used. On the left side of the camera, you'll find a large focusing knob. It moves the front lens panel smoothly back and forth, allowing precise focus. There's a distance scale engraved in feet 3, 3.5, 4, and continuing upward all the way to infinity. The engraving is crisp, neat, and unmistakably German in its precision. And here's a thoughtful detail. Built into this same focusing knob is the ASA DIN reminder dial. You press the center and rotate it to set ASA 25, 50, 100, 200, and so on. It doesn't connect to any meter, but it's there to remind you of the film speed you've loaded. This push and rotate mechanism is simple yet precise, and integrating the film speed reminder into the focusing knob is a clever way Rollei kept the design compact and efficient. On the front panel, just beside the taking lens, sits the shutter cocking lever. It's a small but precise mechanical arm that you must push down to cock the shutter before firing. This lever is directly connected to the taking lens, not the viewing lens. Only after cocking the shutter can you press the release lever to expose the frame. This separation between winding the film and cocking the shutter means you have to be deliberate. Advance the film with the knob, then cock the shutter at the taking lens, then release. It slows you down, but it also makes every frame intentional. Film loading is straightforward but requires attention. You open the back by first rotating the safety knob. According to the arrow, this is the first lock. Only then can you press the lever to release the back cover, the second lock. This two-step system prevents accidental opening of the camera. Once the film is loaded, you thread the paper leader onto the take-up spool, align the arrows with the red mark, close the back, and win until the frame counter shows 1. And here's another clever detail. The Rolleicord VB has a built-in double exposure prevention system. The camera will not allow you to cock the shutter unless the film has been advanced. This ensures that every frame is exposed only once. But if you want to fire the shutter for practice or deliberately create a double exposure, there's a small front dial you can rotate until a red dot appears. That overrides the lock, allowing you to cock the shutter without advancing the film. It's a thoughtful design, simple, mechanical, and reliable. Now, let's talk about the shutter features. The Rolleicord VB uses a synchro compare leaf shutter mounted on the taking lens. It includes a self-timer lever located between the viewing and taking lenses on the right side. Even though it doesn't have the traditional V marking, sliding this lever engages the delay, giving you about 8 to 10 seconds before the shutter fires. There's also a PC sync socket on the shutter housing for connecting a flash. Unlike earlier compare shutters that had a selector for X, M, and V modes, the Rolleicord VB was released in a later era when electronic flash had become standard. By then, nobody used flash bulbs that require M-Sync anymore, so Rollei simplified the design to provide direct X-Sync at all shutter speeds. This wasn't about cost cutting, it was simply a reflection of the technology of its time. And of course, there's a threaded socket for a cable release, allowing you to trigger the shutter remotely or hold it open for long exposures. All of these functions are grouped around the taking lens, making the Rolleicord practical and complete, even if the finish is simpler than the Rollei Flex. The Rolleicord VB is fitted with a Schneider Zenar 75mm f 3.5 lens. On the 6x6 medium format, this focal length gives a field of view, similar to about 45mm on a 35mm camera, essentially a normal lens perspective. And when it comes to depth of field, f3.5 on medium format behaves like roughly f2 on 35mm. That means you get a pleasing background blur and subject separation, comparable to shooting a fast normal lens on a full-frame system. But beyond numbers, medium format has a natural character that simply can't be matched by 35mm. The transitions between in-focus and out-of-focus areas are smoother, more gradual, and more organic. Instead of a harsh micro-contrast, you get a gentle tonality that makes subjects feel three-dimensional and alive. Highlights roll off softly, shadows carry more depth, and the overall image has a calm, painterly quality. This is why photographers often describe medium format as having a unique look. It's not just about resolution, it's about the way the camera draws the world. And the Rolleicord VB, even as the simpler sibling of the Rollei Flex, delivers that medium format magic beautifully. But here's the limitation. Being a twin lens reflex, you're not seeing the exact image that the taking lens captures. You're looking through a separate viewing lens, which means parallax error, especially at close distances. And because the lens is fixed, you can't swap it out for a wide angle or telephoto. That's where the TLR design began to fall behind. Hasselblad changed the game by introducing modular single-lens reflex cameras. With an SLR, you see exactly what the lens sees through a mirror and prism system. No parallax error, no guesswork. What you see in the viewfinder is precisely what ends up on film. This was a huge leap forward. It gave photographers confidence when composing, focusing, and using specialized lenses. Whether it was wide angle, telephoto, or macro, the SLR showed the real image directly. And Hasselblad added interchangeable film backs, Polaroid options, and modular accessories. Soon after, Maier pushed further with the RB67, offering a larger 6x7 negative and a rotating back. And here's the historical context. In the magazine era, most published images were rectangular. That meant Hasselblad and Rollei, shooting 6x6, often had to crop to 6x4.5, losing film area in the process. A 6x6 negative is 3,136 square millimeters, but cropped to 6x4.5, it's only 2,352. By contrast, Maier's 6x7 negative is 3,920 square millimeters. That's 66% more usable area than a cropped 6x6. The result was obvious. Images from the RB67 had visibly higher quality because the actual film area used was significantly larger. And from that point forward, the world moved decisively toward rectangular formats as the standard. So let's wrap up with pros and cons. The pros? It's light and compact for a medium format camera. And when you compare it to a 35mm SLR, the size and portability are surprisingly similar. You don't feel like you're carrying a heavy, oversized box. It slips into a bag almost as easily as a Nikon F or Canon AE1. Image quality is solid and usable for serious work. Craftsmanship is top class. And the design is simply beautiful. It's purely mechanical, which means if you take care of it, it will last for decades. And of course, Rollei is an iconic brand that represents the golden age of photography. Another big advantage is the shutter. The leaf shutter is very quiet and produces almost no vibration. That makes it perfect for street photography because you can capture moments without drawing attention. Combined with waist-level viewing, it allows you to photograph people in a natural way without making them feel threatened or self-conscious. This subtlety is part of what made TLRs so beloved by street photographers in their time. The cons. The closest focusing distance is 3 feet. That means you cannot easily photograph small objects, pets, or subjects at very close range. This limitation is tied to the twin lens reflex design itself. Because you're not looking through the taking lens, parallax error becomes significant at close distances. Another drawback is the shutter release design. On the Rolleicord VB, the shutter is triggered by a sliding lever rather than a push button. It works reliably, but for photographers used to modern cameras, it feels less natural and slightly awkward. By contrast, Rollei Flex models like the 2, 8E, and 3, 5F feature a true push-button release, which is smoother, more intuitive, and even allows the use of soft-release accessories. This difference highlights the more refined user experience of the Rollei Flex compared to the Rolleicord. One drawback is that the Rolleicord VB has no built-in light meter. On the other hand, I actually see this as an advantage today because the built-in meters in cameras of this age have become the weakest point both now and in the long run. For me, when using cameras of this level, I always rely on a separate handheld meter, whether with newer models like the Hasselblad or the Mamiya RB RZ67. To make the picture clearer, from a collector's perspective, think of the Nikon F. It could swap different prisms, and the plain prisms without a meter have become the most sought after and rare today. But for those who don't own a handheld meter and don't want to use a phone app, Rollei printed a graphic exposure guide with detailed recommendations for different situations right on the back of the camera. Now, from my personal perspective, holding the Rolleicord 5B is an experience in itself. The body feels solid yet compact. The leatherette covering has a tactile grip, and the folding hood opens with a smooth, precise motion. Every click, every movement of the knobs and levers feels intentional. It's like handling a fine Swiss watch mechanical perfection that has survived for decades. And the condition of this particular camera is unbelievable. For something over 50 years old, it feels almost new. It makes me wonder if it was refurbished at the factory because the textures and anti-reflection finishes are just too perfect to be a casual repair job. So how do I rate the Rolleicord 5B overall? For me, it deserves an 8.5 out of 10. The design and craftsmanship are excellent. The image quality from the Schneider Sina lens is beautiful, and the camera remains surprisingly portable, almost comparable to a 35mm SLR in size. Yes, there are limitations. The minimum focus distance of 3 feet, the sliding shutter release that feels less natural than a push button, and the parallax issues inherent to the TLR design. But those drawbacks don't overshadow the charm and capability of this camera. It's quiet, discreet, and perfect for street photography, and it represents the end of an era when Rollei gave photographers access to medium format magic at an affordable price. That's why I give it 8.5 out of 10. The Rolleicord 5B is not the most luxurious Rollei, but it represents the end of an era. A camera that gave photographers access to medium format magic. It's a piece of history that still delivers beautiful results today, and it reminds us why Rollei was once the king of cameras. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into classic camera history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next review. We'll continue exploring the cameras that shape photography as we know it.